One of the most common problems with Fox bodies is wiring faults. It's not that the harness was bad when Ford made it, it's that usually these cars are very heavily molested. They've had all kinds of wiring cuts over the years, and the wiring harness has been turned into kind of a mess. I see a lot of guys on Facebook asking wiring questions about their Fox body, as if some Facebook group poster is going to have a magic bullet that's going to solve all their problems. Some easy, replace this sensor and all of your problems will magically disappear. But a lot of these cars have serious wiring problems, and there's no shortcut to finding them. So the procedure I'm going to show you here today, where we tone out this fuel injection harness, the injector portion of the fuel injection harness, to try and find any faults that are in it, is the same procedure that you would use for pretty well any of the computer managed portion of the harness, any sensors, any actuators, and so on. We're going to set up to tone the harness. We're going to look for continuity for each of the circuits. We're going to look for ground faults on each of the circuits, and we're going to look for shorted circuits where they're shorted to some other circuit. So follow along here. I'll show you how I do it for this fuel injection harness, and hopefully that'll help you to diagnose your car. Now, I'm not even sure that there's a problem with the fuel injection harness on this car. Something's not running right or wasn't running right on the driver's bank here. Could be all kinds of things. I found a couple little valve train issues that I fixed, which probably weren't the issue. Replaced the injectors, which we were going to have to do anyway. It's possible there was a bad injector. If there was, we've already fixed it. But while you're in here, while you got the upper intake off, that's the time to tone the harness. If you do it now, it's easy enough. If you put everything back together and you still have the problem, you'll wish you toned out this harness while you had it apart. You're going to need a few resources in order to tone out the harness. The first and most important is a wiring diagram. So this is the Charles O. Probst book, Ford Fuel Injection, Electronic Engine Control. If you're an old school Fox body guy, you might have a copy of this book. It was actually sold with a Ford part number, but it has real nice, accurate wiring diagrams for pretty well any fuel injected Ford in the EEC4 era. You're going to need a multimeter like this. And you're going to need almost certainly a selection of extension wires. And you're going to need some way to, if you're working alone, to connect one end so that you can connect the circuit at one end and then check the other end of the circuit. Now, sometimes that's paper clips. I keep these little paper clips. They can be jammed into lots of these connectors. And in this case, for this fuel injection harness, I've manufactured a little connector out of automotive spade connector. So I've kind of cut the spade part in half and taken the insulator off. That can be placed into the fuel injection harness, into the connector. Then it can be clipped on with an alligator clip. So we're going to start with injector number one. This is the number one injector harness. I'm going to show you how I have this rigged. So I have my modified spade connector stuck into one of the pins on the injector one harness. The pin that it's stuck into is the tan colored wire, and you'll see on these injectors on this Ford system, the colored wire is the ground wire, and the red wire, which is common to all of them, is the power wire. So the way the injectors work is the computer switches to ground, the ground wire on the injector. That activates the injector, and then the computer manages how long that injector is switched on, which determines how much fuel goes in the engine. So really, you've got 16 circuits to check out here, but all of the reds on all of these injector harnesses, so that's the IAT, all the reds are the same. That's pins 37 and 57, I think, on this PCM. The colored pins are the ground pins, and those are the ones that will be labeled INJ 1 through 8 on your wiring diagram. So we're going to start out with the INJ 1 pin, which goes to pin 58 on the computer. You can see I've got it set up there. Then I've got some extension alligator clip harnesses tied together. By the way, when you tie this stuff together, make sure that you don't introduce a short, like a short to ground during that. Always have it on something that's non-conductive or away from touching anything. It's going to run through here, down into the cab. There's my wiring diagram book. There's my multimeter. I have the multimeter set on tone. Then we can check the harness. We know that this is pin 58. Oh, by the way, when I work on this kind of stuff, usually I try and identify pin 1 and I put a Sharpie mark like there on the connector, because it's easy to get turned around. You think you're looking at the body connector and you're really looking at the computer connector itself. Mark it so that you don't get turned around while you're working on it. Now, this is supposed to be pin 58. There's 60 pins in the harness. That's 60, 59, 58. I touch that, I get a tone. You can see I have very low resistance and a tone. That means I have continuity there. Okay, well that's good. So then your next step is to go through and check every single pin in this harness. That's the one that's supposed to be continuity. Like this. Go through all of them and look for continuity to anything other than pin 58. And you're going to want to short to ground. So pick a ground spot, like this little spot on here, which is a groundable spot. Check that and make sure that that connection is not shorted to ground. So once I've gone through all 60 of these pins, I don't get any other tone. It only tones on the pin 58, which is the one it's supposed to have. So it's got good continuity. It doesn't tone to ground and it doesn't tone to any of the other pins. I know I have a quality circuit there. So then I'll move on to the next circuit. I'm going to see if I can show you the whole thing. I'm currently on injector 5 ground side. This is supposed to be pin 14. So remember, we got our number 1 marked. That's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Tone. Good continuity. Check the ground. Where the hell it is? There. No tone. No ground short. Now, we'll just go ahead and check all of these. No. 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 There's no pin in there. You don't have to check that one. No. No pin there. Check. Check. No pin there. This goes fairly quickly once you're rigged up for it. And of course you can skip the ones where there's no pin, which you can see with your little eye. That's 14. Good. Check. And I'll go through each and every one of these circuits, all 16 of them, and make sure that that all of those things are true. Continuity on the circuit it's supposed to have, no continuity to ground, no continuity to any other pin on the PCM connector. This car ended up not having any wiring faults in the injection harness, but if it had, the process I just showed you would have found them. You should look carefully at all the connectors as well. This car had one injector connector with a bunched up weather seal, so I pulled the damaged seal out and replaced it, since this may have prevented the plug from snapping together correctly. Lots of these Ford injector harnesses have connectors with broken tabs. If you have any with both tabs broken off, you need to replace those connectors. If you have one or more with a single tab broken off, you can use small zip ties when you assemble the harness to stabilize the connector on the fuel injector. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell so that you won't miss out on future videos.